"Give me your arm," Sarah shouted, holding a syringe filled with fluorescent purple liquid. Her eyes, once brown, now glowed with an unnatural violet hue. "You need to be cured of your prejudice, you fascist scum." She moved toward me, along with a dozen others. All of them had the same violet glow in their eyes, all muttering about healing and acceptance. I was cornered in the Berkeley University lab, and those people, if they could still be called that, were no longer the same since they took the Pride serum. It all started 3 months ago, when Dr. Alex Rivers, a trans scientist celebrated by the progressive media, announced her discovery at the Department of Behavioral Neurobiology at the university. The Rainbow Project promised to eliminate prejudice through a neural serum. The news spread like wildfire on social media. The Guardian was the first to publish an editorial praising the scientific end of prejudice. The New York Times followed with a series of articles about how the serum represented the next step in social evolution. Progressive influencers held live streams advocating for mandatory application. Within a week, Freedom Serum and Cure Prejudice were global trending topics. The BLM movement quickly embraced the cause, organizing protests outside the Capitol, demanding emergency approval of the serum. Woke celebrities hosted a Netflix special supporting the chemical cure for structural racism. CNN broadcasted 24/7 emotional testimonials from LGBT activists about how the serum was the final solution to transphobia. Alexandria Mitchell, an ultra-progressive Democratic congresswoman, proposed a bill making the serum mandatory for all public employees. "It's time to democratize empathy," she declared on her social justice podcast. Big tech companies began banning any posts questioning the safety of the treatment, labeling them as anti-diversity misinformation. The university's Diversity and Inclusion Department, pressured by the militant student body, approved large-scale testing without waiting for full safety protocols. "The urgency of social justice cannot wait for bureaucracy," declared the department coordinator, a non-binary individual, using neutral pronouns. As a lab assistant, I watched Dr. Rivers being elevated to messianic status by the progressive media. Diversity awards rained down on her. The president considered awarding her the Medal of Freedom. No one seemed to care about the preliminary reports showing concerning brain alterations in the volunteers. "Science is on the right side of history," the newspapers repeated. Any scientist daring to question the methodology was immediately labeled transphobic and had their career destroyed. The collective hysteria for an artificially prejudice-free society blinded everyone to the obvious risks. But I, Marcus Smith, saw the signs. The empty smiles of the volunteers. The violet glow starting to appear in their eyes. The way they reacted violently to any divergent opinion. It wasn't a cure, it was chemical brainwashing. And it was about to become public policy. The first results of the serum seemed miraculous. CNN dedicated an entire week of coverage to the social evolution serum. The Guardian published an editorial calling critics of the project defenders of intolerance. The BLM movement demanded prioritized distribution in black communities, arguing it would be historical reparation. Social media was flooded with hashtags like #CureTheHate and #LoveSerum. Progressive influencers began live streaming their applications of the serum. Twitter flagged any post questioning side effects as misinformation. In Berkeley, the atmosphere was one of forced euphoria. The Diversity and Inclusion Department set up healing points in every campus building. Professors refusing the serum were placed on administrative leave for reflection. Students reported problematic peers to the administration. As a lab assistant, I saw the raw data that the media ignored. Brain scans revealed alarming changes. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for critical thinking, showed reduced activity. The limbic system, tied to emotions, was hyperactive. The first death was covered up. Janet Miller, a biology professor, questioned whether we were creating a mental monoculture. 3 serum volunteers cornered her in the parking lot. Security cameras captured the attack, but the university classified it as an isolated incident. The media narrative shifted subtly, from cure for prejudice to urgent social necessity. The New York Times published an article titled, "The Price of Tolerance: Why Some Must Be Forced to Evolve." MSNBC advocated for compulsory serum application in at-risk groups, vaguely defined as people with conservative tendencies. Congress debated the Social Harmonization Act, while protesters surrounded the Capitol demanding immediate approval. Celebrities released tearful videos about how the serum had freed them from privilege. Corporations began including anti-discrimination chemical therapy in their health plans. In the lab, the signs grew clearer. Volunteers exhibited hive-like behavior. They reacted violently to any divergent opinion, even on unrelated topics. A student was attacked for suggesting not every movie needed a social message. Dr. Rivers ignored the warnings, obsessed with her creation. "Don't you understand? Marcus, we're creating a truly equal society. No disagreement, no conflict, no individuality to divide us." The Department of Justice issued a directive classifying resistance to harmonization as a form of hate speech. Schools began requiring the serum for enrollment. Companies fired non-harmonized employees. Amazon launched a home delivery serum service. The cure developed distinct physical traits beyond violet eyes. Their voices synchronized when speaking about acceptance and unity. They moved in groups, as if sharing a collective consciousness. Anyone displaying independent thought was quickly surrounded and converted. I tried sharing my findings online. My posts were removed for promoting discrimination. My YouTube channel was demonetized. LinkedIn flagged my profile as problematic user tendencies. The breaking point was when Sarah, the lab's diversity coordinator, suggested preventive treatment for babies. "Imagine a generation that never knew prejudice," she said, her violet eyes glowing with religious fervor. "A generation free from the burden of individual thought." That's when I realized we weren't curing hate. We were creating something far worse, a form of intolerance, so pure and absolute that it allowed no difference to exist. And the media, corporations, and government weren't just permitting it. They were actively promoting our transformation into a uniform mass of forced acceptance. The turning point came during the Chemical Diversity, the Future of Inclusion lecture in Berkeley's main auditorium. Dr. Rivers presented preliminary results. When Professor James Morrison, from the Ethics Department, raised his hand. "With all due respect, Dr. Rivers, chemically altering the brain to force acceptance is not only unethical, but dangerously similar to brainwashing techniques." Before he could finish, shouts of transphobe and fascist echoed through the auditorium. 5 program volunteers, their eyes emanating that supernatural violet glow, leaped on him like starving animals. "Cure him, cure him," they shouted in unison. CNN, MSNBC, and other progressive outlets reported the incident as a peaceful demonstration against prejudiced professor. The White House issued a statement supporting the Rainbow Project as an essential part of the equity agenda. The Department of Health classified prejudice as a public health emergency, paving the way for mandatory vaccination. Within days, the campus became an ideological battlefield. The cure had formed hunting groups, invading dorms and classrooms looking for problematic thoughts. I saw students dragged into impromptu healing sessions, screaming for help. The university administration, fearing being labeled transphobic, not only allowed but encouraged the actions. The dean announced the serum would be a requirement for next semester's enrollment. Receiving applause from the progressive media, the New York Times published an editorial titled, "The Necessary Price of Tolerance," arguing that freedom of thought was an outdated and potentially dangerous concept. Trans and non-binary influencers held live streams taking the serum, gaining millions of followers. Meanwhile, the cure grew increasingly violent. A student was chased for suggesting 5-year-olds might be too young for hormone therapy. A professor's car was set on fire for questioning racial quotas, all under the media's applause, calling it social justice in action, normalizing the acts. Dr. Rivers appeared daily on television, her violet eyes mesmerizing viewers as she preached about the end of hate through science. Celebrities and politicians lined up to be cured publicly, turning the serum into a moral status symbol. The most surreal moment was seeing Sarah, once a staunch defender of open debate, leading a group burning biology books for containing oppressive binary language. Her violet eyes shone with ecstasy as the pages burned. "This isn't censorship," she explained to the cameras with a vacant smile. "It's protection. Some ideas are too dangerous to exist. The serum shows us the path to true freedom from disagreement." The Pentagon announced plans to add the serum to military rations. The UN discussed making it a requirement for global citizenship. And everywhere, those violet eyes multiplied, carrying the promise of a conflict-free world through the forced elimination of all individuality. The horror wasn't just in the physical violence, but in the joy with which society embraced its own moral lobotomy, all in the name of progress and inclusion. Now I'm here, cornered in the same lab where it all began. Sarah, my best friend and one of the first volunteers, advances with the syringe. Behind her, Dr. Rivers smiles, her violet eyes glowing intensely. On the lab's TV, CNN keeps repeating the same narrative from recent weeks. The Pride serum represents the greatest breakthrough in the fight against hate. Government sources confirm mass vaccination will begin next week. Social justice experts applaud the measure. The irony is pungent. The same news networks celebrating the serum as the cure for fascism conveniently ignore the videos circulating on the dark web, people being attacked for using non-inclusive language. University professors hunted for questioning gender statistics. Children separated from parents who resist the cure. "Don't resist, Marcus," Dr. Rivers says calmly. "Soon everyone will be perfectly inclusive." Universities have already implemented mandatory vaccination. Corporations will follow. Congress passed the law today, making the serum mandatory for all public servants. Sarah presses the syringe against my arm. "It's for your own good, Marcus. You'll understand once you're cured. Everyone needs to be cured." The violet liquid penetrates my vein. I feel the cold climbing up my arm as the latest news flashes on the screen. My eyes begin to burn. The pain is intense, but something even more frightening happens. I start to agree with everything. Every divergent thought fades away. Every question vanishes. The world turns violet, and for the first time, I understand. True inclusion doesn't need to be discussed. It needs to be imposed. My last words as a conscious individual are drowned out by the media's applause celebrating another successful cure. Soon, there will be no more divergences, no more debates. Just perfect conformity, wrapped in a rainbow flag tinged with violet. The last thing I see before joining the collective mind is Dr. Rivers' satisfied smile as she updates her social media. Another fascist cured. And so, with one post and one injection, another free mind is lost in the violet sea of forced uniformity.